evening and welcome back to the First Time Homebuyer Show. I am your host, SD Klassen. As you know, we have absolutely amazing shows coming to you every night this week. Zamantungwa Kumalo live at 7 p.m. with the Private Property Podcast. Mbali is at 8 p.m. every Tuesday and Thursday with the Farming Podcast. And of course, the Home Shopper Show has changed its time to Mondays and Fridays live at 8 p.m. That's Chad with the Home Shopper Show Mondays and Fridays. And of course, tonight we have the First Time Homebuyer Show, and without further ado, I'm chatting to a CEO, entrepreneur, visionary, leader, author. The list is endless. I'm chatting to the one and only Witness Mdaka. Good evening, Witness. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Esti?
I'm well. Beautiful intro. That's you, all these titles. And there's obviously so much more that I left out. Tell us a little bit about Witness.
Okay. Witness is a young entrepreneur, property investor. Started off in the township of Tembisa, built up a business from there. So I don't know, should I get into the details of how I started?
I'd like for that, yes. Go deeper. We want to know about your journey, how you got to where you are, and this book says it all, you know?
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so the year is 2008. I've just finished my matric, and my mother discovered that she had overpaid her bond by 150,000 rands, and she decided to build back rooms at our yard in Tembisa. And upon finishing up those back rooms, she said to me that if you want to go to varsity, you must manage and look after these tenants. And that's how the journey into property started for me. At the time, I didn't even think it was a business. I just thought it's something that brings in money for us to buy groceries, for me to go to university. Yeah, I remember the first tenant, his name was Julius Kotokwan, right? The guy came in and my mother said to him, the money that you have, give it to my son, Witness. He'll be the one collecting the rental every month. And then just like that, I went into property.
And I mean, so you had to take the rent and pay for your own education. And being a young individuals ourselves, we know that getting money and using it just to stay committed and motivated to actually use this for education, was that easy? Were you not tempted to buy other things, to do other things with the money?
So I must be honest. I was very, I was a very forward young man at the time. But my mother had just had her first stroke at the time. She fell ill immediately after finishing the project, and I had to manage the project myself moving forward. But I also managed her salary. So her card, I had her card, I had access to all her PINs and all her other bank accounts. So I didn't use all the money for school fees like she had wanted me to, obviously, you know. So she had actually bought me a car. So with the money that she got, she bought me a car, and she built the back rooms from which the rental I was using to pay for university. Some of the money I paid school fees, some of the money I had fun with. Let me tell you something. One year, she allowed me to collect the rental the entire year, right? And then at the end of the year, she came to me with a calculation with everything that I had collected. And she said to me, you collected this much, this is how much you ought to have used, I want the rest of the money. And I did not have it. And that was my lesson there and there, that whenever you're given something to look after, you have to do what's required.
I mean, you got full control over all the money, you know, with not just the bond, it was other money as well that you got to control. So being that young, how important do you think it is for young people in this day and age to actually start saving?
I guess some of the lessons concerning savings are not lessons that I learned by myself necessarily, but basically lessons that I learned from my mother in observation. You know, when she fell ill, there was a lot of money at the time, which I think it was a lot, that I had access to continue to run the household, to continue to pay for my siblings' schooling, continue to look after her, continue to look after everybody. So it is important because it's one of those things that when a rainy day comes, which it was at the time, a rainy day, you have access to that to help you build an umbrella, basically.
So obviously saving and being young, like we said, it is important for young people to save. But what would you say was the biggest lesson your mom taught you when it came to saving and being financially savvy?
So I'm remembering a situation where she bought something prematurely, actually. So she went and bought couches, a TV, and a surround sound system for my grandmother, right? And every month we were paying for that, obviously. And because I had access to the bank accounts, I could see this money going off every month. And I realized that, look, if you're gonna buy something, at least save for it and pay for it and finish it. You know, because there were times where she would start complaining about those debit orders, but it was nice when she bought those things. So I think the lesson didn't come directly from her. You see, with me, all the lessons I learned concerning money, saving, my mother did not tell me directly that you need to save, you need to do this, you need to do that. She would just do it, sometimes make mistakes, and I would be there watching. When she does well, I'll be there. I'll realize, oh, okay, she overpaid a house by that much. Then it's good to save money and overpay some certain things. And she wasn't even aware that she had overpaid the house. That's the thing. So which means that she was paying more into the bond without even realizing that she was doing so.
And I think that's so important, experiential learning, right? So you had to witness your mom doing these things.
I had to what?
You had to witness. You had to witness your mom doing these things, making these mistakes, and you too, your mom gave you like full ownership of the money, so you too had to make your own mistakes. And I know you're a family man, and you talk about, a lot of people spoke about your book and said this is a book they want to give to their kids. This is something they want to also let their children read and also become financially savvy. But it's so true what you're saying, you know, we need to experience these things first. Watch, it's all good and well to talk, to discipline your kids, tell them the same thing over and over, but once they experience it, that's such for me, I think it's a better way of learning, because you felt it now and you know not to make those mistakes again.
So, and I guess because I was in an environment where when my mother was ill, I was the eldest child. Now I knew that my brother had to be looked after, my niece had to be looked after, my mother had to be looked after. So every amount that came in, literally we had to make sure that it goes a long way. And plus, at the same time, the university where I was a private university. So if you didn't pay any fees, they wouldn't allow you to write any exams. So I knew the repercussions of not putting the money aside, although sometimes there would be instances where I had not paid the fees, and I would do things like going to the fees office, negotiating for them to give me a gate pass, building relationships with the security guards, and they would always let me in, although they wouldn't let the other guys in. So it's those kind of things where, like you say, experiential learning. You know, it isn't an instance where she sat me down and said, this is how you do this, this is how you do this. She would do things like fetch my payslip from work. And the hospital where she worked was like a walking distance from her house. So on the 15th of every month, I would fetch her payslip and I would open it on my way home to check how much does she really earn. But it also taught me not to be demanding when it comes to certain things, because I knew how much she was making and how much was going out as well.
So you learned how to empathize exactly. This is a question to the viewers as well as to you, Witness. What would you say, because you talk about the fees office and the trauma of the fees office. I resonate to that so much. To our viewers at home, what are you actively doing to help your siblings, your nieces, your nephews, the young people in your communities? What are you doing to actively help them get to a place where either you are, or get to a place where they would like to feel financially stable, to a point where they also believe that generational wealth is possible? What would you say, Witness, you are doing to the kids in the community, youth? What are you doing to help them get to the point where you are?
Yeah, so I'm a youth leader at church.
Oh, nice.
So I get involved a lot with engaging with young people in the community where I come from, where I grew up actually in Tembisa. I always make sure that, for instance, I engage with my younger brother. He's managing some of his own units now at our house in Tembisa. Some of the units belong to him. He's looking after those. He's collecting the rentals. He's chowing all the money. and then comes back, asks for more. But the matter is that he's learning how to do it by himself,
Exactly.
you know. And for the other young people, I wrote a book for them. You know, it's more than just money.
Exactly.
Primarily, the book was written basically to bridge that gap, to say, okay, I've learned all these lessons. I've met amazing and successful people, other than my mother, who've impacted my life in a positive way, who've taught me the things that I know about property and business, and added to that knowledge. So I thought, okay, since I've been exposed to that, the best way I could help the community and the young people is to help expose them to the same things that I've been exposed to, you know. So, because I think the biggest thing is exposure. You know, if you've never been exposed to something, you'll never really know how to do it. So I'll give you an example. I've been managing tenants since I was 18. I'm 31 now, so it means I've been doing it for over 13 years, right? So because of that exposure, I don't have a problem knocking and asking for my money, right? Because I've done it so many times. I started doing it when at the time elderly people were renting from us, and they would tell me, Mchana, I didn't get a salary. You know, some would even run away. I remember I told you about our first tenant, Julius. So Julius wrote me a note, right? And he left and the note and said, if you sell my stuff, I will kill you. And left the note there. And left. And that was the last time I saw him or heard of him, right? Eventually I did sell his stuff.
And you're still alive, so.
I'm still alive. So, no, he's scared of me. I'm dead like... You know, so it's one of those things where you realize, oh, the exposure. I've been there. I've been in that environment. Like they say, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And sometimes exposure, you don't necessarily have to do it on your own. You get exposure from other people that have done it. So if I've written this book and you read the book, so basically you're getting exposed to everything that I'm talking about, but it took me years for me to get to the point where I have to write that book, right? Personal experiences, other people's experiences that have taught me how to do things in this way. So if you sit down, you read the book that took maybe 13 years to build up in like 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours.
And you know what I've just taken from what you just said about generational wealth, and it goes back to the title of this book. It is more than just money. For me, wealth, yes, it is being rich and the riches, but it's being wealthy with your mind, with your heart, with everything that you use. You talk about how your brother took over the job your mom gave you. That alone is building generational wealth, because now your brother's doing what you did. So at the end of the day, he's also making the same mistakes you did. And as much as you've told him, don't do this, don't do that, he has to do it for himself, you know, and I'm sure you've seen this, because what did you say? He's using the money. Obviously he's learning and he is going about it the correct way. But we're all tempted. We all...
So at first, I actually had to, I was collecting his rental for him at first, and I would pay him in the form of a salary. And every month he would come to me and says, I don't understand why you need to do things for me. I'm not a child. You know, I want to manage my own stuff. I said, oh, okay, it's fine. You manage your own stuff now. And I know he's moved out of home now. He lives in a different area. He's got his own flat that he's paying for. And he tells me that he doesn't need the rental money. So clearly there's something else that he's doing to generate income for himself. So yeah, I'm proud of him. I'm proud of what he's doing for himself. I wouldn't necessarily take the credit for what he's doing. I think it's all on him. And I think maybe the only credit that I could take is that probably maybe I did lead by example, and that's the only credit due to me in that.
Let's talk about this generational wealth thing. What is Witness? What are you doing to secure and create that safety net of generational wealth to leave for those coming after you?
For my kids?
Yes.
From when I was young, when my mother did what she did for me, I told myself that I'm going to do the same thing for my kids, but purchasing properties one way or another, making sure that there's always a property available for any of my generation. So from my kids to my grandkids and my great grandkids, you know, I'm building. So one time I was driving with my son, right, and he saw a Porsche. He was still about 4, he's 10 now. He saw a Porsche and he said, yo, I like that car. And I said to him, do you know what you need to do to get that car? And he said, just buy it. And then I said to him, no, you purchase a cash flowing property that's going to pay for itself and also pay for that car, right? He was 4. Then recently, he saw a Ferrari at his school, and apparently was driving with my driver had taken him to school. And when he saw the Porsche, the Ferrari, and he said to my driver, I'm going to buy that car. And my driver said to him, how are you going to buy it? And he said, I'm going to buy a building and convert it into units to rent out, and I'm going to buy a Porsche. So for me, it's not even about just giving him those things. Is literally passing down the knowledge to him, because every site that I've worked on, he's been to it. Every project that I've worked on, he's been to it. Even when we pay guys cash, he stands next to me and I give them the cash to teach him that when you've got people working on your projects, you have to make sure that you pay them very well and they will come and execute the work that they need to execute. So for me, it's mainly about imparting and pouring myself into the next generation. You know, making time to pour myself into the next generation. That's what matters to me.
And asking the right questions. Because you could have easily told your son, yeah, sure, you can just buy it and just leave it at that. But you asked the right questions. You're actively asking him, what do you need to do it? And you also gave him a solution. You said, no, you need to buy a positive cash flowing property. And so let's talk about how property has helped you and your family continue, because you are building generational wealth. How else has property, because I know your mom, you said you built back rooms, you have developments now, you're expanding your property portfolio. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So from that property that my mother had left for us with my brother, I eventually did graduate, and I did work for a marketing company for 14 months, and then I quit my job. Then a friend of mine and I started a retail business, a spaza shop. So our idea was that we're going to compete with the Pakistani shops in the township, right? And we went in wanting to do this thing, started this business. Then after a while, I thought it's not what I want to do with my life, you know. So I've learned lessons from there, but I really wanted to be in property full time. And for him, he wanted to be a statistician, so he went to study further, right? So, and then I went into construction, started building houses for people, renovating houses for people. But my wife and I stayed in a studio apartment in Cape Town, and when I was there, I thought to myself, a studio apartment is a lot like a back room. For me, it looks like it's the same thing. The only difference is that a back room does not have a toilet and a shower and a kitchen. That's the only difference. So I said to my wife, we need to start giving people, especially in the township, things like this, right? Then we started buying property in the township of Tembisa and building studio apartments instead of just normal back rooms, where the back room has got amenities like a toilet, a kitchen, it's properly tiled, proper ceiling, it's nice. Then that was when the journey into property investing started for me, to a point where we started buying properties in predominantly white areas and rezoning them and converting them into apartments, right? So for me now, my journey is to continue to expand in that manner, to expand in such a way that we could continue employing people and could continue making sure that there's available property for anybody that wants to live in a nice place. But a lot of young people want to live in apartments that cost 6,000, 7,000, but you find that the person is only earning 15 to 20,000, right? So that is a lot of money to put on rental. But when we came in, our studio apartments were 2.5, 3,000. So it was a lot more affordable for them to start renting those kind of apartments. So I thought to myself that the business has got some sort of a social impact because we're making sure that young people have got readily available accommodation when they start working. And it's accommodation that is nice, clean, and they can afford it, right? So for the country or for the community, that is something that adds value. And for me, obviously, it's a business that I'm passionate about. I started it when I was younger, and it's something that I enjoy doing. So it's got a double approach to it.
Exactly, and you benefit, either way.
Yeah.
I wanna move a little bit to your book.
Yeah.
Let's start with the title. It's more than just money. And throughout this interview, throughout this discussion, we've heard that it is more than just money. It's more than just investing in property and creating a passive income for yourself. There's more to this property journey. So how did you come up with the title?
It's more than just money. So it's funny, right? So last year, it was lockdown. It was my anniversary. So I started writing posts reminiscing on my journey with my wife. It was our 5th year anniversary. So those posts attracted a lot of people, right? And some were positive comments, some were negative comments. And when I continued to write about business principles that people need to be applying in their personal lives in order to prosper, I realized that a lot of people focus a lot on the money aspect. And I thought, okay, I told my wife that, okay, there's a lot of people now commenting on my stuff. And I had 400 followers. All of a sudden there was 3,000. And then there was 7,000. I said to her, if I reach 10,000 followers, I'm gonna write a book. And she said, are you? I said, yes. I kept writing my posts on Facebook, and there were 10,000 people there. I think I started writing these posts in March. By the end of April, there were 10,000 people. Then I started writing the book. By June, I was done. Submitted it to the publisher, and then it was published on the 1st of September, right? So, and then we literally started distributing the book from my office, right? So for me, that's how the title came about, because I realized that our people's mindset, their mindset is more focused on the money, forgetting that if you're gonna build a life or build wealth, there's a lot more to it than just the actual cash, right? So that's why statistically people who become millionaires through the lottery lose that money. Most of the people lose that money, but the people who've built wealth with knowledge, they can lose R1 million today, they'll make it tomorrow because they know how to do it. Whereas a lot of people just focus on the money aspect only. So that's where the title comes from.
And again, like it goes back to what I said about generational wealth earlier. It's not just money. It's more than just that, it's applying your mind to certain things to keep you need to be rich within. It needs to come within. It doesn't need to be physical cash. I want to go to a review. So when I googled your book, someone left a review and said, life has no manual, but reading your book has been a life manual for that person who left the review. Hearing things like that about something you wrote, and yes, you were driven by getting an amount of followers, but the book, you didn't need 10K followers to write the book. You already had a book in mind before you even started. So getting a review like that from someone, how does that make you feel? Someone who says your book has become a life manual for them.
Well, it's overwhelming to hear things like that, So when I wrote the book, I knew it was a good book. When I wrote it, right? I knew it was because already there was feedback that I was getting from these people, right? So we went from 10,000 to 44,000 people. So these people are following what I'm writing, right? And a lot of them were commenting and saying, so one guy, when he bought the book, actually came to our office, right? And he said to me, I started working as an artisan 18 years ago, right? And for 18 years, I never bought a property. I was buying cars, I was buying nice clothes, and then I came across your posts on Facebook. And for the first time, my family is moving into my first property, right? So that's why I say it's overwhelming. And I feel like, when it's God's time, it's God's time. If God wants to use you to change people's lives, God is going to use you to change people's lives. I wanted to write the book. The reason why I focused on followers is that I don't like working for free. So I thought to myself, if I'm going to write a book, it must become a bestseller, it must make money, right? So when I wrote it, I thought, okay, there is an audience for people to buy the book, that is going to buy the book rather. And that's why I wrote the book at the time that I wrote it. If I must be honest, if there weren't any followers, I wasn't going to write the book. Right, because I want to get paid for every work that I do.
Yeah.
Right? So that was the reason I wrote it. And for it to change people's lives so much, you know, because some of the people, they don't write the reviews online. They send me messages, and someone would say, I was earning 8,000. I didn't think I could afford a property, but I've just moved into my house. And because of the things that you've been writing, opening my eyes, I realized that myself as well, I can afford to live in a property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A question that came to mind when I read the back of the book, which has got to do with your bio and as well as what the book is about. And it's a question that I ask in my friend circles quite often is, how do we just start? How do you just wake up in the morning and start? You go on that mission to invest in property. Because I feel like on a day-to-day life, there's social media, there's a pandemic around us. We are always, there's an idea that we have. You're an entrepreneur. There's an idea that you have, maybe starting a spaza shop. It fails the next week. How do you pick yourself back up and just start?
Sure. So in the book, there's a chapter, right?
Yeah.
Titled, "What is chasing you? What are you chasing?" Right. So for me, I know very well that if I don't work hard, right, the life of poverty that I come from is chasing me. The life of living in the township. Not only did I grow up in Tembisa, but I stayed in Alexander. That's where my grandmother stayed, right? And I also stayed in a place called Klepgat, other side of Northwest. So I know very well that if I don't work hard, you know, that's the life that I come from, and that's the life that is chasing me, you know. And then also there are things that we are chasing. You know, there's a life that I'm chasing, a better life for my kids. You asked the other time, earlier on, what generational wealth means. Generational wealth means to me that on any given day, if my son has got swimming, I can stop this meeting and go to swimming. Yeah. You know, I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm gonna get paid, because I've put in the required amount of work that's needed for me to live the kind of life that I want to live. Yeah. You know, so you're constantly chasing something. You know, as a person, there's something that you're chasing, and what you are chasing motivates you. You know, and there's a quote there. It says, every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up and realizes that it must run faster than the fastest lion. You know, otherwise it will be caught and it will be killed that day. You know, but the lion also wakes up realizing that it must outrun the slowest gazelle, otherwise it will starve that day. You know, so whether you're a lion or a gazelle, when the sun comes up, you've got to start running. You know, so meaning whether you're being chased or whether you are chasing, you've got to start running. You know, whether you're chasing like a lion or running like a gazelle, I'm running like a gazelle, and I'm also chasing like a lion, because there's something in front of me that I really want for myself and for my kids and for my siblings. I hate poverty. I hate it with a passion. So I really don't want to compromise when it comes to dealing with poverty. And the only way I can wake up and work hard is to have the realization that if I don't, it is constantly chasing me. There's no uncle somewhere that is going to give me a trust fund or give me money. So it's all on me. Yeah.
You need to leave that for everyone coming after you, so that they can also choose whether they're a lion or a gazelle.
I'll decide if I'll leave it for them or not.
If you don't, what do you do with it?
If you know what the thing is, right? The principle for me is that when my kids are at a certain age where they've grown, they need to prove that they're able to do these things for themselves. I think indirectly that's what my mother did with me. I had to prove myself. I had to manage her money. I had to. So there's a Bible verse that says, if you are not faithful with what is not yours, how can God give you what is yours? Right? So they have to first show themselves to be worthy of whatever that I'm going to leave for them. Otherwise, they're getting nothing.
No, and I agree with that. I like what you said. What can you do to teach, whether it's your child, your nephew, your children, to teach them how to work with the amount of money that you're going to leave them with? So whether it's you're telling them you can only get it after you graduate, or you can only get it at a certain age, because you were quite young when you got all that money, 18, but you still had your mother by your side, you still had someone guiding you, you saw the mistakes she made, which not everyone has the opportunity to learn and grow from our elders. And I think that's very important. We need to remember that our elders are there to teach us. so that we can also teach those who come after.
Yeah. So my mother was a very hard teacher.
Yeah.
Right. And if when it was required, she'll slap you. And not just slap you once, 5 times if she has to, because I think that was the type of person that she was. So I knew the amount of discipline that was going to be instilled in me if I didn't do what was required at the time. You know, but I was a teenager, nothing stopped me from doing it.
Exactly. You found a way.
But later you realize that actually it was important for me to be kept on a straight line. You know, you realize it later. You don't realize it when it's happening, but you realize it later that I actually needed that.
Yeah. You're a CEO, an entrepreneur, an author, and I always like asking my guests about the challenges that came in their way. Because we all go through challenges, trials and tribulations. So I don't want to ask you about the challenges that came in your way. I want to ask you how you overcame those things. How did you on a day-to-day basis overcome these trials that got in your way?
Yeah, I think for me, what keeps me going with, especially with business challenges, is because I've been through far worse in my personal life. Like I lost my brother was killed when I was 16. He was literally killed by a gang of guys, right? So that's something I had to heal through and forgive those people, right? So that's something I had to overcome. My sister died when she was 18, leaving a toddler. When you hear me say my niece, that's my sister's child, right? Then eventually I lost my mother, and before she died, she was in hospital for 8 months, paralyzed. You know, so having been through that, you know, it tells me that I've got what it takes to go through whatever else that comes my way, you know, especially business-wise, because at the end of the day, my philosophy is that, look, whether you and I like it or not, at the end of the day, these are just material things, you know. So the fact that we've got the capacity to get them doesn't necessarily mean that our lives revolve around those things, right? So I remember one time somebody was telling me a story about a friend of his that killed himself because his projects were not going very well. And I said to him that if it had happened that my projects are not going well, I'd pack my bags and go live in the rural areas.
Right.
Life is cheap there. And I would rebuild from there. Because my mindset is that if you could build these things the first time, you could build it again another time and do it even better. Right? So it's exactly that. The fact that I've been through worse in my personal life that I had to overcome makes it it doesn't make it a lot easier, but it makes it possible for me to understand that, okay, I've been through worse and I can make it through this.
And that's what keeps driving you.
Oh, your
Get up every morning.
Keeps me going.
And like you said, you hate poverty.
I do.
We don't want to go back there.
Nah.
Keep moving.
Nah.
Now, do you have any regrets throughout your journey?
No, I don't. I think life should be lived the way it should be, you know. So I don't. I've made a lot of mistakes. There's a chapter even in the book that says you'll make mistakes. You'll have to understand that mistakes are part of your journey. Regrets are part of the journey. So I don't have necessarily regrets that I can think of right now and say I regret that and that and that. I think the way my life turned out is the way it was supposed to.
I want to, just before we end off, I want to speak to the viewers about something that you've said. So you say the problem isn't starting, it's wanting to start where other people are. So that is because as humans we compare ourselves on a day-to-day basis. I look at Witness and I'm like, yo, you're 31, I'm almost 31, I need to be where you are. But you're right, we're running our own race. So on that note, the problem is wanting to start where other people are. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? So
we're busy starting a new company now with friends of mine, completely unrelated to property. I see myself, because they want me to be the CEO of the company, so I see myself then growing that business. and doing far better in the property industry as well. You know, so I don't want to be a CEO actually. I prefer somebody else being a CEO, because being a CEO means every day I need to be working, right? I want to be able to build a machine of a business that can run without me. So the next 5 to 10 years, I would like to have businesses that are operating independent of my contribution, so that I can focus on things that matter the most to me. You know, my kids, my family. Maybe I should write another book.
Maybe.
You know, so I think it's important to live life.
Yeah.
To live life and not do life. You know, to live it. You know, and living life is not necessarily being in the hustle and bustle every day. Living life is making sure that you've got a legacy that you've left, and the legacy is not just money. When you're not there, your presence is missed. You know, so you said something about us comparing ourselves to people that are not where we are, or wanting to start where they are. It's very important to understand where you are. You might be calling me successful or not, but if I'm sitting with my friends, some of my friends, I don't consider myself successful at all. You know, based on what they've achieved, far greater than I have at a young age. You know, so that keeps me sober. You know, what keeps me sober is that wherever you go, there's always going to be someone who's doing better than you, and there's always going to be someone who's dumber than you. So you just have to understand that you're not all that, and you're not the worst either.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm at the age where before I get to 30, I want to have so many properties, and I want to have a passive income, and I want to retire by 40. But if yesterday on a Monday I just realized that maybe I didn't make that investment today, maybe I didn't invest in shares or invest in property, and I just wanted to do nothing and live life, because what I wanted to do yesterday was just live. And I did that, but today we're back to the grind. So it's about not giving up as well. It's about being in this energy, in this moment where you, yes, live life, make mistakes, but learn to learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, we have people in our circles who make the same mistakes on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
And who just give up at the end of the day. So it's about, you know, picking yourself back up. And I like that you're chasing something. So to the viewers at home, I think we need to find out what is it that you're chasing, and just to continue to chase that thing.
Yeah.
So I like that.
And resting is part of work.
Yes.
Resting and just
Resting is productive work as well.
it's part of work.
Which I love. I wanted to ask you just a closing question. I ask all my guests this question, and it's about home. Right, on the show we talk about your home ownership journey. What does home mean to you, for you and your family, for you as witness? What does that word home mean?
Peace, stability, you know, tranquility, fights sometimes. Like home is the place where no matter how much you are annoyed, is the place that you're going to go back to. You know, so for me, really learning from not even just the home that I have now with my wife and my kids, but understanding that even where I grew up, you know, if my mother was there, her presence just meant it's home. If she was not there, it didn't feel as much home as it would when she's there. You know, so I think a home is a place where you need to be able to tune into who you are, and be yourself, and engage with the people that love you and you love them back. Yeah.
So we're gonna close off there. We're gonna end the show there. But I'd like for you as witness to just to leave a little bit of some last few words for the viewers at home. And I'm gonna give you a word, and I'd like for you to say the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
And the word is financial freedom.
Oh no, financial freedom will save your life. You only live life when you're financially free. So you have to strive for financial freedom.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you so much, witness. I really appreciate that you took the time out, came to the show, and I love what you're doing, and I love that you've inspired me so much today. Just to also keep doing that for myself and for the people that I leave this legacy for. at the end of the day. So thank you so much, Witness.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. To our viewers at home, thank you so much, and do have a blessed week further. As you know, we have absolutely amazing shows coming to you every night this week. Zamantungwa Kumalo live at 7 p.m. with the Private Property Podcast. Mbali is at 8 p.m. every Tuesday and Thursday with the Farming Podcast. And of course, the Home Shopper Show has changed its time to Mondays and Fridays live at 8 p.m. That's Chad with the Home Shopper Show Mondays and Fridays. You don't want to miss that. Have a blessed week. Goodbye.